Howdy ho, everyone. How are you doing? This is Sharon Combs, and this is Knowledge or Nonsense. Listen, I'm so excited about spending time with you this evening. You guys know we've been talking about being authentic and having an authentic series. And so we want to be able to speak with everyone, not just women, not just men, not just rich, not just poor, not just healthcare, not just education, but we want to hit every demographic to find out what are some of the challenges of being authentic and what are some of the risks when we're not authentic? And how do we authentically show up, not just as a person, but as a business, as an industry, as an organ, like as an organization? There's so many ways that authenticity has appeal, and so many ways that authenticity, when it's not really addressed, can cause us to miss the boat. And so tonight, with the individual, tonight we're going to have a gentleman who's with us, and we're going to look at some of the ways that we may be missing opportunities, that we may be stagnant without knowing, or maybe we know, but no one's doing anything about it. But we're going to look at that and see how we can more authentically show up. We're going to answer some questions. I'm excited about our guest tonight. You guys know what to do. Please share this video, grab your drink, get your popcorn, get your fingers ready so that you too can ask questions and comment. And when I come back, we will have our guest, and he's going to help us. He's going to help us learn, maybe see something in a way we hadn't seen it before. And I'm excited. My little earphones are just falling off, but we're going to fix that right now. Boom. All right. So we'll be right back. You guys, go ahead and get your popcorn, and I'll see you in just a second. Howdy ho, Keith. How are you doing today?
I am doing good. I'm doing really well.
Good. I'm very glad to see you. I'm glad you were able to join us today. Before I start asking you some questions, I want to take a moment to give you your flowers and share a little bit about who you are. I know that you are the CEO. You won some amazing. You had a great award that you won last year, which allowed you to partner with individuals. You had decades working with surgical, not just surgical equipment, but the instruments, implants, and you truly have an insight there. Can you tell us a little bit more about what it is you do and why you still do it? I mean, I know money keeps people, but only to a certain extent. And so you've been in it past the money. So will you share a little bit about why you do what you do?
Well, I thank you again for that. So I kind of share with people that I have bringing value to healthcare for over 27 years. And it was starting out assisting surgeons in the operating room in the military. And so I have that clinical the clinical background, bringing the integrity side, to healthcare, and then consulting with Johnson and Johnson on some new devices, working with orthopedic surgeons and neurosurgeons, and then doing something which is kind of rare, which is owning a medical device distributorship for implants, treating complex spine fusion surgeries and also brain tumors. And so I've been doing that collectively over 27 years.
Okay, so I know you have a company called Medwell Solutions. You also work with another company that are you at liberty to share a little bit about that company? You
Um,
CEO?
yes, and so the companies are, Medwell Solutions is a healthcare supply company, and I am working on another company called Echo Equity Community and Healthcare Outreach, and so I think that's the company you're referring to.
Well, I was thinking Imperium, but
Oh,
that too.
well, they all come together. So Imperium is my medical device distributorship that I've had for over 12 years. And that's where we have the reps that will assist surgeons in the operating room. I started Medwell Solutions as a med tech company, and that's still in development. And then I am also creating another platform called Echo, Equity Community and Healthcare Outreach, and that is to align with hospitals to kind of help them be accountable with supply diversity. So there's three different brands, but they all kind of have the same purpose, and that's to support supply diversity.
Excellent. And right now, this year anyway, there were some different things and comments made as it related to diversity, but diversity is so critical no matter what we talk about. And in this series, especially, we're talking about showing up as authentically yourself. And if there is no diversity, then how can you show up authentically as yourself?
Mhm.
And so, but for tonight's conversation, we actually want to look at some things that are not just about me being diverse, but about organizations, and not just about me being authentic, but about organizations and ways that they can actually hit the mark, better hit the mark. A couple of weeks back, I saw one of your posts. I do follow you on LinkedIn. I try to keep up with you, and you had made a really thought provoking post.
Mhm.
Just saying, hey, if we're moving forward here, why are some of these things stagnant? What can we do different? Now, that's my summation, and we're going to go deeper into it. But I
Mhm.
wanted to ask you, as far as your experience in the healthcare industry, and like, why do you think that hospitals and healthcare as a whole is failing at reaching millennials and even the generation after millennials as far as bringing them into our spaces?
Now, so a lot of these are, of course, my opinions, but also real life scenarios. And with being, the topic of being authentic, I will share a discussion that I had. And so my daughter came home from college, and she saw a little post-it note on the fridge, and it's basically my program of the food that I need to eat. And so she asked about that. So I shared with her that, my doctor said I was pre-diabetic. And, that's a conversation that we've been having for decades. We always talk about diabetes, but we really don't know what it is until we have that consult and the doctor tells us, hey, these are your results. And so I asked her, did she know anything about diabetes? And she didn't. Only that she had a family member that she knew had passed away from it.
Wow.
So with me just kind of sharing that with her, her seeing my program on the fridge, it made me realize that I don't want her going to the doctor 20, 25 years from now, and then her getting a result of her being pre-diabetic. So I was thinking, what can I do to educate her right now, other than telling her like, hey, this is what I'm doing to be healthy. But then I thought about it, and I was thinking, like, we've been having these discussions for over 20 for decades, but what are hospitals doing to really provide preventative measures for the next generations? We're still going to have these conversations from years to come. So it made me think about that. It's like, what are we doing to really put preventative measures in place for the next generation?
Now, is that something that do we just assume that hospitals are like, is that something we assume hospitals will do? Because in America, we do have like private healthcare. Our
Mhm.
healthcare system is different from other places globally. So, what are some things maybe that hospitals can do if we are asking them about bringing awareness outside of just, diabetic month or kidney health week, something like that?
Well, and then, that's thinking about the month right now is every month there's some kind of awareness. I think the one month that everybody's familiar with is October, for Breast Cancer Awareness Month. That gets a lot of more attention than the others. But this month is Men's Health Awareness Month, and also Alzheimer's Awareness Month. And again, yeah, I may be assuming, I'm not sure if hospitals are doing anything. If they are, they're not making a lot of noise about it, meaning that if they're doing something, it's within their four walls. They're not out in the communities doing a lot to really talk about these things that are going on to provide preventative measures. And they're not really doing any. They're not connecting with millennials as far as being on social media. When there are a couple of hospitals that I do follow as well, but they're talking about the same things, every day. They'll show a picture about this person, leaving the hospital. They'll show a picture about this person in pain, but I haven't really seen anything as far as what they're doing to provide preventative measures. And so again, this really, it struck a chord for me when, I was talking to my daughter and she really didn't understand what pre-diabetes was. And I was thinking, and if I was aware of this, I've heard about diabetes, like everybody else does. But if I had more information about it, had preventative measures, I could have done better.
Okay. And so I hear that both of my parents actually suffered with diabetes, and one of them did, from complications and the things that come with diabetes. That was how they went on and they passed away. My father, on the other hand, he had those same challenges, but he also had things from Vietnam, like things with Agent Orange. So it was a lot of complications, I would say, with his health. And so I just remember some of the elders, or what I would call the elders in my family, talking about sugar and, sugar diabetes. That's what they called it. Or he got sugar or something like
Sugar.
that.
Yeah.
But you had mentioned in the post that really kind of made me think about it. Like, one of the primary things with healthcare is to bring awareness. And so that's why I just kind of push back, because I wonder if that is still one of the primary components to bring awareness and prevention, because statistically the diseases they're not lowering, like we're not, I don't know that we're seeing rates go down of any of these preventable diseases. And so that's why you were saying there's a disconnect. But you had also mentioned it being boring. Do you think that it's a disconnect because of awareness, or could it be a disconnect because whatever we are doing in our stabilized facilities, that it's not actually reaching? Do you truly believe, because you mentioned social media, do you truly believe that maybe some campaigns or social media campaigns will bring more of that awareness so that we could actually have a better impact in preventative health?
I believe so. And the reason being is because that's where the next generation is. They are on social media. They are doing things that I wasn't doing 20 years ago. And so, and I do look at healthcare is boring because they're doing the same things. They're having their monthly newsletters. I don't think millennials are reading newsletters. They're not doing those kind of things. I'm not a millennial, but I do think it's boring. And I say that because so when I had a couple of meetings with some board members at hospitals, and they're successful, but they're good at crunching numbers. They're good at reporting, but there was nobody younger than the age of 50 on these boards. So again, these are board members that are skilled. They have the knowledge. They're successful in their own right, but they're not. Just by looking at that, I'm like, man, you guys don't really know what's going on with the next generation. What does the next generation want to hear? And so that kind of made me thinking about is boring.
Okay. So it's boring because it's not capturing their attention. Now, you had mentioned millennials. So do you feel like there's a certain age? Yeah. How do you act? Let's talk about this. Like, so how do we segment it? How do we categorize so that these demographics are hit? Because it may be hard to tell a 21-year-old about something like diabetes. You could tell them, but will they hear?
Yeah, and I say millennials because that's I am I forgot which one I am, but I just have some. I have gray hairs, so I'm way beyond a millennial, but so I'm just looking at how to capture the audience. How do we stop having the same conversations? How do we stop talking about diabetes? How do we stop talking about eating right, different things? And it takes, preventative measures. And, one of the things I was, thinking about was in each community, each market, we have different nonprofits that are related to different causes, different diseases. And, a lot of times these nonprofits have the best intentions. And so I was looking at it as well. Their goal is to help support the community, help with bringing awareness to these causes, but these nonprofits are under resourced. And
Yeah.
so my thought about it was, well, if there was a collaboration, if there was a joint venture, even if we have different hospitals, you have hospital A, hospital B, hospital C, and they're all doing their own thing in regards to, let's say they are doing preventative measures, but there's no centralized platform. These diseases aren't, an age thing or race thing. These diseases impact everybody. And so instead of just hospitals having discussions within their own four walls, they should collectively get out with other hospitals, get out with nonprofits, and figure out a way. How can we provide preventative measures? How can we find a way to make bring awareness to these diseases? And in a lot of major markets, you have medical schools. Another thing that you have are universities. Universities have sororities and fraternities. And so if you are able to just kind of, bring them in, do something creative, with them, we can bring more awareness about these discussions.
Okay. One of the things with knowledge and nonsense that I love that we get to do, and I thank you for being a part of that this evening, is we do bring awareness. We do bring visibility. And when you were talking, it did make me think, because you said these individuals will be footing the bill in 20 years.
Yeah.
Like they're going to have to pay, for lack of a better word, for the father's sins, but like in an industry, like the industry costs will have gone up then, the costs of healthcare, the costs on the quality of life, a lot of different things. And so with knowledge and nonsense, I'm glad that we're kind of exposing something that probably is nonsense.
Mhm.
And I don't know, I have ideas, and I'm sure you have ideas about how to bring more awareness, but we probably won't be able to bring awareness by looking at antiquated methods or outdated methods of advertising. Mailers may not get the information through that because a lot of people don't even look at their mail unless they're expecting a specific item.
Mhm.
Grocery stores, like, it's because there's been so many changes. We have to change where we're putting our messages. And that too, you had mentioned about healthcare being boring, and it made me think also, well, yeah, if you're
Mhm.
not the doctor, or if you're not working in some component of it that would bring excitement, the average person probably doesn't think about healthcare until something goes amiss. So have you thought about ways that could make it more exciting, or not even exciting, but that gummit just interesting, something that can make it more interesting?
Mhm. And so when I talk about healthcare, and I'm looking at it more on elective, non-emergent procedures. Of
Okay.
course, when something traumatic happened, of course you want to go to a good ER. But when it's something to where you need to go to a PCP or a dermatologist, those are non-emergent elective procedures. And kind of going back a little bit, and I know we talk about diabetes, but I actually had a conversation with when I talk about millennials, is conversation with some young high school football players, and I asked them what do they know about a concussion. They know it happens, but they can't tell me how to prevent it, other than not get hit fast by playing football. You don't hear about concussions in older folks. We're not playing sports, other than golf, and then not a whole lot of impact with that. But just by me talking to my daughter, talking to young football players, is if they knew more about what was going on, then we can provide preventative measures. We can do things to have the cost, not be as high down the line. And so I think, it's just going to just really take a voice. It's going to take some things to happen. It's going to take some younger people to say, hey, why they need to recognize, like, hey, what are the requirements to being on the board? Why isn't a younger person a board member of this hospital? We're going to the hospitals as well. Other than, patients that are going to the hospital for labor and delivery, young people aren't going to the hospital that much, other than maybe labor and delivery and cosmetic procedures. And so the hospital realized they're not my target audience, I'm assuming. But now if they did things differently, say like, hey, you know what, if we're trying to bring awareness and provide preventative measures, we need to do things differently. They keep doing the same thing because it's safe. Sometimes they have to look at ways of, we realize that we need to put other measures in place. And so they just need to look at different avenues. I've had discussions with even hospital executives, and they told me that they're not happy with their marketing because it's boring. So I've had these conversations with different executives. I don't know really what the magic pill is or anything else for that, but there needs to be something different to where we can stop having these conversations and looking at ways to really connect with the younger audience.
I don't know about the magic pill. I do know part of that magic pill is what you said at the beginning about awareness, because awareness drives behavior. Even with the young man you were talking about with football, if they understand more than just a concussion happens when I get hit, as far as the symptoms of a concussion are indicators that you may have a concussion, then they know what to look for. Same thing with any other preventable disease. If you know what to look for, maybe you can see those indicators before something has settled in and make the adjustments necessary. And you're right, you don't have to wait until you are what I call this big age, whatever age I am now, this big age, before you're finding those things out. Because I do remember hearing about diabetes, but there was no true understanding before I hit like a certain age, and things began to happen. And so I do think awareness drives behavior. So that's part of the magic pill. That's one ingredient in it. Also, you had mentioned something about marketing it better, and you were talking with the CEO, and he said, "Well, our marketing is boring." Um, and you said, "Why do we have to rely on Netflix, a Netflix documentary, to teach us that processed food is bad?" I watched that documentary, and because I watched it, I made some changes. Because I watched it, and like recently, I was like, I'm losing weight, but I'm not doing anything different than the changes I saw from the documentary. And I was like, okay. And so I think that I wish I knew a better way, because even the people who do the awareness and they do like some fairs, young people aren't really coming to those fairs, like the little, get your sugar checked for free, or get your pet vaccinated for free on Tuesday. Millennials, I've never really seen millennials at any of those events. And so I don't know how to make it more interesting. And it may never get exciting for a patient or someone who's not actively engaged in being a part of healthcare on the doctor, nursing, sterile processing, anesthesiologist on that side. But it still is interesting because it has to do with us. So, yeah.
Definitely. Yeah, and Netflix is doing a really good job. And so there, and I learned more about diabetes watching Netflix documentaries. I learned about genetics. I learned about different foods to eat. I think there was one on there about the twins, and they were eating different foods. One were eating a vegan lifestyle, and the other one was, eating, meats and everything. So I was learning more watching Netflix. I'm like, why isn't hospital in my community doing more? And so that kind of made me think about it, like, man, like there are other outlets that are doing things, but hospitals really have not um, done anything major.
Okay, we're going to go and take a quick commercial break. When we come back, I have a couple of things that I want us to hit on. You talked about diversifying the board. And so I do have a question. I'm like, would a younger person, like, y'all don't boo me off the stage when I say this, but would someone in the millennial generation or a younger generation, would they have the experience, the wherewithal, and the fortitude to really sit on a board and understand how these large organizations work? And I also want to ask, because I know that you work a lot fostering and promoting diversity, equity, and inclusion. Since so many of these preventable things actually hit marginalized communities, now it's spilling out over, kind of like gun violence. It hit certain communities first, and now it's spilling over because it wasn't addressed. Like, do you feel like we could? Do you feel like there needs to be more awareness in certain areas instead of the other? So I've hit you with a couple of hard questions. The first one we're going to talk about is the board, but we're going
Okay.
to do that once we come back from this commercial break. We'll be right back.
Scrub is all about celebrating healthcare. If you're in the healthcare field, no matter where you work, we celebrate you.
All right, and we're back, guys. You're watching Knowledge and Nonsense. This is myself and Keith Palmer, CEO of MedWell Solutions. We're just talking about awareness, how an organization can authentically bring awareness. Like, what are some things we can really do without just checking a box or without just trying to conform to something that's been done 40 years ago, 30 years ago, 20 years ago, something that can actually be innovative and address the current changes so that individuals can see it and awareness can drive behavior. So I wanted to listen. It sounds good, Keith. It sounds good to say, hey, diversify these boards. Let's get some millennials on some of these boards at hospitals. But that's almost like saying, let's get a millennial as a president of the United States. It seems like there's a certain age for somebody to get certain roles. So is it feasible for us even to expect? And if that is something that would help healthcare be more interesting and more attractive, not just to the workplace, but to all people, like, what would that look like? How would we be able to source that? What are some ways? Because I know you're solution oriented. So if you're putting it out there, you've thought of 1 to 2 ways that we could maybe introduce this to younger generations.
And I'm not saying that they need to be on the board today or in 5 years, but they do need to have like some kind of outreach with millennials. They need to get more insight as far as what can be done for preventative measures. They can revise or modify their board requirements, because when it comes to being a patient, I mean, the hospital will take your money no matter what age you are, and so that same consideration should be given when it comes to matters that affect our community and matters that affect our young people. So may not be a full board member, but they should have focus groups. They should have panels, discussions that will include a younger generation. And again, the board member, a young board member may be too extreme, but they need to have more insight from the younger generation. They need to include them with with kind of this kind of stuff that's going on.
And I'm definitely not saying the younger generation would not benefit the boards. I just wanted to ask some of the ways you had thought that would happen, because I actually do see, and I think too, our professional organizations that are associated, I call them healthcare adjacent. So your HSPAs, your ARN, these professional organizations that also support healthcare. We don't only have to just say hospitals do it yourself. I think that's part of community recognizing that we are more than one. You know what I'm saying? Now we're all one, but we are more than one, if that makes sense. And so I think there are other ways too that we can help add perspective and influence decisions. Mentoring people who may be millennials, who may be not millennials, they may be post millennials, entering the workforce, getting ready. Because again, I think that will help healthcare organizations. Yes, it's going to help us as far as being patients wherever we are, but it will also help healthcare organizations be relevant outside of robotic arms. You know what I'm saying? Like, it will help us keep that relevance there. And so, yeah, that's good. That's good. I wish too, maybe it happens. Have you ever heard of like hospitals, how communities have what they call town hall meetings? Have you ever heard of hospitals having open meetings where people from the community can come and share?
Actually, I haven't. That would be a good, yeah. That I have not heard of a hospital having any kind of town hall meetings. And another thing that may come to mind would be hospitals have different department managers. You have a manager for the ICU, a manager for labor and delivery, a manager for the operating room, and so if the hospitals would say, well, hey, this month is Alzheimer's month, so we're gonna have a department manager go and talk to this group of people to bring more awareness to that cause. And next month it may be a different department manager. And so these are things to where the hospital can say, well, hey, we want to make more of an impact in the community. This department manager who oversees patients, other nurses, deal with doctors and the hospital executives, we're going to loan this person out and just have these discussions because they are knowledgeable and in that field. They may know more about stroke care. They may know more about diabetes because they're a manager. They're able to advise others. And so if hospitals were to include them or allow them to go out there and have these conversations, I think that would be a good start.
Okay. Well, good. Maybe I'm a fan. I partner with a group called Scrub Ball. I believe you sponsored it as well.
Yep.
Maybe that's something, sometimes it just takes somebody starting something, and then larger organizations, if they see something working, they will adopt it. However way you look at it, they will adopt it if it's working.
Yeah. And, kind of going back to where we're talking about being authentic is it took me a while to really put that post out there, because it was a risk. It was a risk because, again, I'm not one to really talk about these kind of things. But again, it does start with leadership. It does start with having a voice. And for me, it was probably personal because I was like, man, for my daughter to really ask about what she saw in the fridge, I was like, I don't want her to go through this. And so I was like, I can't explain it to her. I'm still learning myself. And there's only so many Netflix documentaries that she can see. And so I was like, well, I can't, how do I make sure that she's getting the information that she needs to get? And, we see TikToks and everything else on social media. If the hospital were to be more engaged with the next generation, we can put preventative measures out there. But it made me think about, like healthcare is boring because, again, those shows, Are You Smarter Than a Fifth Grader? Sometimes I gotta think about that. Like, do I really know enough about diabetes to explain it to her when I'm still learning myself? But if there were preventative measures, if there were outlets for her to be for an outlet to reach her. They were an outlet for the young men football players to learn about concussions, different things. I think that's what made me thinking about like healthcare really is boring. I still see, a hospital marketing in a magazine, or I get the little magazines coming in the mail. I'm like, but millennials don't really read those. I don't really read them, a whole lot. So it's like, we're still getting the monthly newsletters and things, but it's, it's kind of, I want to say it's broken, but they need to modify their approach.
It's not landing the way that it would have landed 20 years ago, 15 years ago. And you're right. I get magazines. I don't even know how I get them because I never subscribe to them. I think it's just in my zip code. So they send it out to me. And I probably get one a month, maybe up to 3 a month. And if I'm looking through it, it's because I absolutely was bored, had nothing. I can't think of one that I've read all the way through. So yeah, you're right. But ask me what I've seen on TikTok, and I don't spend an inordinate amount of time on TikTok, but ask me what I've seen. I've seen TikToks that say sugar in your brain is Alzheimer's. Sugar in your blood is this, sugar in a child is this, ADHD, and I'm listening to it. I'm listening to it. And based off of some of the things they said, I have gone to do research to be like, is this really true? And so you're right. It does get our eyes, and whatever gets our attention, our intentions are going to follow that. So hopefully, maybe there's someone listening who is wanting to make a difference, who is wanting to bring awareness, because it is interesting. And I just really, man, I'm with you in this part, Keith. Right now, to me, healthcare is reactive only. I know they want it to be preventative, but it's reactive only. Even for some of the people who work in healthcare. I work in healthcare, you work in healthcare. But the work is so much like, it doesn't matter where you work. If their preventative stuff isn't in place, I'm not going to get into that because I spoke with someone today and they shared some things about health and healthcare. And the thing is, we can work so much, and we work in healthcare, but it still doesn't mean we are aware of these preventative things that will have an impact on us, on our quality of life, on the longevity of life, on so many things. So hopefully we will be able to get some different voices in there, things that can be changed to improve. Hopefully there'll be some people out there who are willing to be innovative and add just a little more risk, maybe put a little bit more in the budget to try to do something new and unique, especially with the way healthcare and insurance plans are now, where people are having more say so on where they get to go to the doctor, on who their doctor is going to be. I think it's a benefit for healthcare organizations. I really do, to bring that awareness. So
no, I agree also.
Yeah. Now, to be clear, I want to push back a little bit. So we want to bring awareness. We want to bring those things. You mentioned millennial, and I think that's because, that's the workforce, but millennials are about 40 years old right now. There's some millennials that are hit, like they grown, they're grown. And so I do think they could be in the boardrooms. I always want to push back because it's knowledge or nonsense. And I don't want to just say something and it's only my opinion. But when you say a 40-year-old person who's been working for 2 decades in a field, or even 15 years in the field, they are going to have some insight, especially if they're in an executive position where they understanding how to make projections and forecast. And they would bring value to those seats and to that room, and they would bring another thought. Often I think in healthcare, we're kind of in our echo chambers based on our industry, but that will bring a different thought to the pot. So
no, and I definitely I agree with that, and and again, it's just getting more advisement as far as what would appeal to them, other than patients going to The hospitals for younger patients going to the hospital for cosmetic procedures or to give birth is, hospitals do so much. They have physical therapy, they have labs, they have pharmacies, but a lot of times we're going to other retailers, for that, when we actually have hospitals that can provide these same, services. So, so as a hospital, like, okay, well, instead of you going to CVS, for a prescription or for a lab, come to the hospital because they have the resources to provide preventative measures. What are the next generation looking for? What is going to be the appeal to get them to go to the hospital? Because again, we know that in a couple of years they may need to go to the hospital for a procedure, and so a hospital needs to improve their brand of not just fixing a problem, but doing something to manage it, before it takes its course.
Listen, I can't think of one person that is going to a hospital on, that's, oh, wow. You are really talking about changing the narrative. You're saying that this way, these hospitals could be our partners in healthcare, not just a last resort. Because
Correct.
I can't think of anyone that I know that is going to a hospital unless they have to. And I do mean have to, even for procedures that maybe they could get and all of the resources could work together, like you're saying. But people are like, no, I'm just going to go over here to this clinic. I'm going to go out of town. I see so many people run into a clinic, maybe down in Florida or something. You're right.
Mm-hmm.
That's a lofty challenge. That's a lofty challenge you're coming with there, Mr. Palmer, to get people to see hospitals, for lack of a better word, as a place that's not death or, you're going to only to avoid death, but as actually like a partner in your healthcare so that you can have an optimal life, that your body and your health can be an optimal source for you.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
And I look at it is, a lot of, these hospitals, they have, they're fancy, meaning they got the nice decor, they have the nice, paintings on the walls now, they got nice furniture. And so they're making it a little bit more friendly, to go there. Again, they're making it more friendly for, I guess, the family members who are there visiting somebody, who is sick or being cared for, in the hospital. But these hospitals, they have conference rooms. They're not being used all the time, and so invite the community out to say, hey, you need a conference room, come here. We'll teach you more about different things. Even get into potentially co-sharing or something like that. These hospitals have the resources and they're already in our communities. And if they're doing something, it can be on the lines of preventative care. And again, this is just my opinion. I don't have all the answers, but it is my insight and my awareness as far as connecting with younger adults who sees what's going on, but they don't have the answers as far as preventative measures.
All right. One of the things, let me see if you'd mentioned oh, wow. Let me do one quick commercial break and then we're going to come back. When I come back, we're going to talk about what the challenge is and, maybe put a charge out there to individuals, decision makers, influencers, those who can bring awareness. That's part of being authentically you. And I want to thank you for being authentic here. I share some things too, as well as authenticity. And we want organizations to be able to be authentic. And that's why I said someone who's okay with taking a little more risk. I know that we have been taught to be risk adverse in certain organizations, but maybe take a little risk and put a piece of your budget towards something to increase visibility, because that partnership with your community, because every hospital says it for the community around them, that partnership with your community, like it matters to them. And that's going to build trust with the community. So they will come to you when needed, not just when they're on their deathbed or in dire straits. They can come to you and ask questions, knowing that you are a partner in their health. And you're not just going to give them 27 things like a shade tree mechanic so that you can drive up your revenue, but you're going to partner with them to have an optimal life. So let me go ahead. Let's take one quick commercial. We're probably going to do a couple of commercials. Definitely about Scrub Ball, guys. Scrub Ball is coming. It is this month, and I'm very excited about it. If you are in healthcare, if you rock scrubs, we rock with you. We will celebrate you. The leadership training is there. If you want to grow in your leadership, regardless of what healthcare industry you're in, whether it's sterile processing, the OR, anesthesiologist, whatever it is you're doing in healthcare, if you want to grow in your leadership, Scrub Ball is the place to do that. And so let's do a quick commercial or two, and we'll be right back.
Oh, so just once. One, two. Hey, y'all.
I laughed, I learned, I grew.
Magnificent. It's just not your average conference, so we include a lot of fun activity while we are learning and networking also.
That's why you should come out, because we recognize everyone that wears scrubs.
It's all about thanking you, celebrating you, honoring you for what you do for us every single day. You know, Scrub Ball was a dream come true for us. We actually thought about how do we bring people together just to say thank you for what you've done. COVID hit and it really told us we don't give enough gratitude for these frontline workers, and that is you. So at Scrub Ball, that's what it's all about. We have the classes through the day, giving you CEs. Then we decided to have fun times in the evening. This year, we're actually doing a karaoke night, a boots and boogie night where you can come learn the latest line dancing. But you know what we give you more than anything? We give you a chance to develop friendships that could take a lifetime to develop. And I promise you, you will not leave having met somebody. You'll meet somebody that says, wow, this is my friend for life. That's what I can promise you at Scrub Ball.
Okay, and we're back, guys. My name is Sharon Combs. You're watching Knowledge and Nonsense. I want to thank you for being with us. This is part of our authenticity series. A lot of times with being authentic, we may think, okay, I'm going to be more authentic, or we want our coworkers to be more authentic. We are really talking about being authentic, even in how we show up. We get to decide how we show up, and organizations get to decide how they show up too. And one of the things with healthcare organizations is to bring awareness. And so we're trying to bridge the gap. I'm speaking with Keith Palmer, CEO of Medwell Solutions. I'm so glad that you did make that post. It was very thought-provoking. I have read it 2 or 3 times, just really like asking the questions, you know what? There is a gap. How do we bridge that gap? How do we make it more interesting? How do we make it so that people feel welcome if they're not at a certain age, you know, because everyone has to deal with health. And you're right. Like the way things are set up right now with our food sources, with different things, you can be any age having health concerns. And so things that are preventative, we really want to help people know how to prevent, what are some of the symptoms when you're not preventing, so you can be ahead of the ball. And in partnering with people like that, you develop trust, you build trust. Hospitals can build trust. We're at a time now where hospitals are having to merge, and this one is getting acquired by that one. It's highly competitive. So partnership is a way to separate yourself, care about your people before they're in dire straits, care about your community. And I know if you're in healthcare, you do care about people, but in some of the other roles within healthcare, sometimes only the numbers get to make sense, but we can help the numbers make more sense to help our constituents, you know, to help our communities. And so, we're back, and I'm here with Mr. Keith Palmer. Thank you so much for being here this evening. Now, one of the things you had spoken on, and did you have anything to say before I go to this next comment?
You know, I was thinking about what you said as far as, you know, the hospitals, and I kind of asked people this question: what separates hospital A, hospital B, and hospital C? They all do the same thing. Yeah. Oh, well, I mean, they all do the same thing. They all have an operating room. They all have an ER. And so this can be one of those things that they can brand themselves differently as far as like, hey, we're going to do something within our community. We're not just going to check the box. We're saying we're going to do something in our communities. We're going to put in preventative measures. And so, and I agree, location sometimes is the key, but you know, if it's for a non-elective procedure, I'm going to take my money to where, you know, if I got to drive 40 minutes to a doctor or a hospital for a non-emergent for an elective procedure, you know, I'll do that. So sometimes, because again, location can also be either where you live, where you work, or where you drop the kids off at daycare. And so it is convenience, but also, you know, what's going to separate them from, you know, the other hospitals.
Yeah. So I do want to encourage people to be proactive, and I want to encourage people too, regardless of where you are in the generational gap. If you have had like, you know, if there's a bias of against hospitals or not knowing how to trust, for you medical facilities out there and hospitals out there, this is a way, as Keith and I are saying, like this is a way that you can build trust in the community. If you can partner with someone so that they feel better, they operate better, they have longevity of life outside of emergent things. Listen, that speaks volumes. They will consider you. They will ask you questions before waiting until they have no choice but to ask you. And so in your post, you said the challenge is to be proactive. It's time to build a system that works for everyone, not just the older generation. I agree. What are ways that we can, you know, we've talked about a few, but as we're about to bring this to a close, if there's something you could scream from the rooftop or whisper in the ear of the people who could make changes, what would that be?
It's going to be the hospital executives. It's going to be connecting with the younger generation, and I think it's going to really be these hospitals being affiliated with nonprofits within the communities. And I say within the communities because there are national nonprofits who have you know, more dollars than the local ones. But when you have a local nonprofit for diabetes, for breast cancer awareness, you know, they should be supported, I think, before the national ones. And so I think just connecting with local nonprofits is they are under resourced, but they can be your eyes and ears to those things that hospitals aren't doing. Is they have a connected mission like the hospitals. They want to bring awareness to this. And so I think if hospitals really align themselves with nonprofits, I think that would be a good starting point. Just kind of
That
connect,
is so good.
you know, just connecting with them. Be like, hey, you know, we're in your communities also. And so that's my 2 cents on that.
Boots on the ground. They're familiar with the pulse of that community, with what's going on. They have the connections within that community to be able to partner with other nonprofits, really to carry something out and bring their visibility in that community. That's a really good idea. Yeah, I think that's a great thing to whisper into their ears, because just because you have size, you know, there's some hospital systems like, well, we're so big here, but you know, so was Blockbuster, you know, and size doesn't mean that you have foreverness. There are things that we need to do. So that's so good. Partnering with the local, you know, yeah, because the local does have a pulse on what's going on. They know what's going on. They know the connections. They know how to make things happen in that area. So I just want to thank you guys for being with us this evening. Keith, thank you so much. I'm actually feeling a little inspired. I cannot lie, more than a little. You know, I'm feeling inspired, and I would like to see ways. So I would like to see ways. I'll probably talk with you more offline to see how we could even partner with local individuals and local nonprofits who are putting everything in it to bring awareness to these things, so that people who are not, you know, 65 plus, 55 plus, people who are not on the other side of life can get this information and can use this information for their benefit.
Yeah.
For their benefit. Because Yeah. In 20 years, they will be footing the bill. And in 20 years, they'll be taking care of us. And we want them to have the insight and the information to empower them to do the
Yes.
job at hand.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Well,
All
and
right, Keith. Thank you so much, guys. If you'd like to connect with him, he can be found. He's on LinkedIn, Medwell Solutions. You can look him up. I'm sure he's agreeable. Just reach out to him. You can send him a message on LinkedIn if you want to know more. If there's some questions you have regarding anything that his company does with the nonprofits, connecting with other individuals, like-minded individuals, do so. And if you are in town in the Dallas area, come see us. We'll be at Scrub Ball, and we're going to have an amazing time, and we're going to learn from one another. Okay. So, Keith, that's all I have. Thank you so much. If you'll hang out for just a bit, I may ask you a couple of more questions offline. But again, guys, this has been Knowledge and Nonsense, and this is our Authentic series. I want to encourage you to show up as authentically you. And just because you're authentically you doesn't mean you can't authentically grow. Don't use it as an excuse to just only not grow, but be yourself, because we need what you bring to the table. All right.
Perfect.
We'll see y'all later.